Hey, welcome back to your Pennsylvania Dutch Minute, another grammar-based video coming at you for our lesson this time. And today we're going to learn how to conjugate a verb in Pennsylvania Dutch. And that probably sounds like some fancy talk there. However, it is something that you have been doing your whole life without even knowing it. In whatever language your mother language is, most of you it's probably English, you've been conjugating verbs. Of course, we know that verbs are your action words: to sing, to jump, to play, to run, etc. And what I mean by conjugating is that we take a verb in English, let's say to run, and we conjugate it based on the subject of the sentence. And English is pretty easy, actually. I run. You run. But what happens when we change the subject to he or she? What happens to that verb? Well, in English it would be he runs. You add an S to the end. Probably never thought about it because you've been doing it your whole life. That's conjugating verbs. And Pennsylvania Dutch, just like every other Indo-European language, requires you to conjugate your verbs. And it's a skill that you have to learn if you ever plan on actually talking and using the dialect, which is the whole point, I hope, and why you're watching these videos. So today's lesson it'll be a little longer than normal, and it might seem a little difficult at first, but it's a skill that you have to learn, and really in the end, it just takes practice and you'll be fine. I'm not worried about you not being able to do it. But let's start with the basics. If you didn't watch the video on personal pronouns, it was the one that should be in the playlist right before this one, go back and watch that, because that introduces you to our personal pronoun chart. The I, you, he, she, it, we, you guys, they. Ich, du, er, sie, es, mir, dir, sie. Watch that video, get a good introduction. But let's jump right into it. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. To conjugate a verb in Pennsylvania Dutch, there are two rules that you need to follow. And the nice thing about Pennsylvania Dutch is that the rules never get broken. These are the rules, you do them, okay? And here they are. Rule number one says drop the E. If you look up any verb in your Pennsylvania Dutch dictionary, you'll notice that in the dictionary it'll end in an E. There is a very small number of verbs that don't, but they are by far the minority. 99% of all verbs in Pennsylvania Dutch end in E, in what's called the infinitive, meaning its base form. So, an example, the verb singe, to sing, S-I-N-G-E. You look the word up to sing in a dictionary, it'll say singe. All those verbs end in that E. So rule number one, drop that E off the end of it, and you're left with what's known as the root, let's call it that, or the stem of the verb. Rule number two says add the correct ending. Well, what are those endings? Well, if we look at this chart here, I have the pronouns from our last video in red, the ich, du, er, sie, es, mir, dir, and sie. And then in black, I have the endings. So let's look at these. If the subject of your sentence is ich, if you wanted to say I am doing something, I am singing, for example, you would take that verb to sing, singe, drop that E, rule number one. Rule number two, add the correct ending. Well, the ending for ich is nothing, meaning you don't add anything. Singe, drop the E, would just be sing, S-I-N-G. When you're conjugating for the subject of the sentence being do, you singular, you sing. Notice that the ending here is S-C-H-T. So you rule number one, drop the E, add the ending, S-C-H-T, du singst. For er, sie, and es, all three of them have the same ending. It's T. And we go to the right-hand side, the plurals. For mir, which is we, you put that E right back on. Take the E off, put it right back on. For dir, you guys, you plural, drop the E, add a T. And for sie, they, drop the E, put it right back on. So those are pretty easy. So it's nothing, S-C-H-T, T, E-T-E. In the previous video, I said it'd be good if you memorize these pronouns in the right order. Ich, du, er, sie, es, mir, dir, sie. Now you can see why, because now you can memorize just the endings. Nothing, S-C-H-T, T, E-T-E, and you already know in your mind that's the ich, du, er, sie, es, mir, dir, sie. So those are the endings. Memorize those. You absolutely have to. Now let's actually look at something and where they're being put to use. I chose two verbs to conjugate for you today, and we'll take a look at this one first. The verb is kaufe, which means to buy. So let's say you wanted to say a sentence using the verb to buy or buying. this is how you would conjugate that verb out for the situations with the different pronouns. If you wanted to say, I am buying, it would be ich kauf. Drop the E, add nothing. You buy. Du kaufst. Du kaufst. S-C-H-T ending. He, she, or it buys. Er, sie, or es. Kauft. T ending. We buy. Mir kaufe. You guys buy. Dir kauft. And they buy. Sie kaufe. So here's a great example of how the rules don't get broken in Pennsylvania Dutch. You drop that E from kaufe, and then add the correct ending based on the pronoun. Ich kauf, du kaufst, sie, es kauft, mir kaufe, dir kauft, sie kaufe. Let's take a look at another verb just to kind of cement it in there. A verb I referenced earlier. Singe, to sing, singe. Another verb ends in E, so drop the E, and here we go. Conjugate it out. Ich sing, du singst, sie, und es singt, mir singe, dir singt, sie singe. So now you can literally do any sentence in Pennsylvania Dutch that uses the verb to sing or kaufe, because we already conjugated them out. And now I can tell you that minus a very small handful of verbs, you can now do 99% of all the verbs in Pennsylvania Dutch and conjugate them out into sentences. I took those two verbs and did a sentence for each just to show you. You have a dictionary at home, a lot of you probably do. So now if you wanted to say something like, we are buying, or we buy the cat. If you didn't know the word for cat, you can look the word cat up, but you know how to conjugate your verb now. So that sentence would be, mir kaufe die Katz. Mir kaufe die Katz. Or let's use the verb singe, which we had earlier. You want to say, he sings the song. Look up the word song if you didn't know it. The dictionary will tell you, and now you can create a sentence. Er singt es Lied. Er singt es Lied. Now you know how to conjugate those verbs to use them properly in a sentence. So, hopefully that helps you understand understand how to conjugate verbs. Now here's the great thing. Go out, get your dictionary, make basic sentences. Take a verb, to sleep, for example. Don't know it? Look it up. The dictionary will tell you. Then you can take that and create sentences on your own. He sleeps late. She sleeps in bed. But use the verbs, conjugate them properly, keep them in that basic, simple order. I'm not telling you to go out and make complex sentences yet. You know, we're taking baby steps here. But now you can at least conjugate a verb for any normal situation in the present tense, and that's another key. We're not throwing any past tense or future tense. That's for videos down the road. At this point, you should concentrate on memorizing your personal pronouns, memorizing these verb endings, and then applying them and using them. And the best way to really learn and get better is, like I said, think of a simple sentence in English, and it can be anything. She is baking a cake. Look up the verb to bake, look up the word for cake, and then you can create that sentence in Pennsylvania Dutch. A, you're going to practice and get better. B, you're going to learn and increase your vocabulary because you're going to learn new verbs. You're going to look up the verb to sleep, for example. You're going to look up the verb to go or to stop. The limit, there are no limits here. You can go out there and learn as much as you can using your dictionary. Now, there are a couple of verbs that are what we're going to call irregular verbs. I will do separate videos on those in the future. For right now, you're going to be pretty safe for any verb you pick as long as you stay away from to be and to have and a very small handful of other ones, but I'll do future videos on those specifically because they are unique. But every other noun, to sing, to sleep, to walk, you start naming verbs, get out there, get your dictionaries out, learn them, practice them, and use them, but make sure you're conjugating them properly. It was a lot today. It probably seems like a lot of grammar, but you got to learn these basic skills, and then you can get better, and you can take your language ability much farther. So get out there, use these, practice these. Again, if you ever have any questions, don't be afraid to email me at the email address that's the end of the video. But until next time, we'll see you down that Pennsylvania Dutch road. Macht's gut.